So good morning and welcome to At the Sharp End, a weekly business show where we talk about business issues and things facing our clients, problems that have been highlighted to us in the general business process. And this morning I've got our Head of Insights at Chemia Consulting, John Stevenson, on the show. Welcome, John.
Good morning, Ian. Thank you very much for having me on the show today.
You're very welcome. Interesting it's taken us so long to get Google Hangouts to get themselves sorted out and working this morning with several reboots and things, but we're here now and that's the main thing. So
absolutely.
So as you may know already, Chemia is an innovation agency, and what we do is we take concepts right through, we design them, we build products, and we take them to market and market them for people and with our clients. And John's position is Head of Insights, as I said already. That's the department that does a lot of the background research, looks for market niche, helps our clients to understand their competitive position, etc. And in the course of that, John and I overlap quite a lot, especially when we're doing business modelling. And so it's quite important. So the theme of today's show is going to be about thinking more innovatively, and how can you do that? How can you stimulate that in your team? And we've got our own perspectives on that, and that's what we will be discussing. So I'll just kick off with a fairly simple primer question, John. When we first get started with a team, and they're wanting to do new things, they're wanting to innovate. What do you think one of the major barriers is that's stopping them from innovating?
Good question. Firstly, I think the major challenge with innovation is the realization that you've got to be bold. You've got to get out of your comfort zone, and you've got to think of something new. And remember as well, really realize that most ideas, when you first start generating ideas, simply won't work. It's a process of constant idea generation. It's going to take time to land and discover perhaps the next disruptive technology, if that's what you're looking into.
Yeah, sure. And that's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of companies are focused on the delivery of their product or service, almost to the exclusion of everything else. There's a lot of discussion about how they can deliver better, faster, cheaper, and give more flexibility to their client base and their supply chain. And that often comes across when you start talking to a customer, that they are very, very operationally focused and maybe not looking at that wider picture. Where's the market going, and how they're competitively placed to make sure that they can continue to be successful and hopefully continue to grow, which is most companies' aspirations. So, sorry, go on, John.
No, I was going to use a Star Trek analogy of all things on a Monday morning, and that's simply that I talked about a mindset about generating ideas, and it's so important to think of the Klingons in Star Trek. I best explain that a little bit more. First thing is, never ever cling on to your first idea that you have when you're thinking about innovation and you're trying to kickstart the process, because it probably won't work. Instead, I mean, picking up on Ian's point, where they're just thinking about delivery in short time frames, you need to take a step back, and thinking of Star Trek, you need to think about exploration in terms of innovation. Now, what the devil does that mean? Well, realistically, think about process and exploration. Easy for some to say on a Monday. What I meant to say is, effectively, it's a transformation process, innovation, and it's about process, business, product, service, and it needs to be an enterprise initiative. And it's not just about the product or the service. It can be just as easily about process and the business that sits behind that.
So practically, though, when we talk about a company starting to think innovatively, having ideas is only the first part, right? There's got to be some way of enacting those ideas. There's got to be a way that whoever's got the idea feels comfortable enough to propose that to the senior team within the business, and to get their back in, be able to try some of the things out, It might not be a new product. We talk about products a lot because that's what a lot of what we're involved in, but it could simply be a process improvement as well, an innovation around that, or it could be a business model innovation. The point really is lots of people have ideas, and lots of people, especially in business, if you're at the front end of the market, you're talking to clients all the time, you're getting feedback, and that's really valuable. So simply recognizing some of the client's pain and some of the client's needs is a great place to start, and to start thinking about how do we improve what we do to fix that pain point. But once you've got those ideas, how do you systematize the enactment of them to improve the business? And that's where a lot of companies fail and struggle to be accepting that, you know, some of the people within the company will have good ideas and actually can help to improve the business. And the best companies start to recognize that and have a formal process. So we've seen a few where things like an innovation panel have been put into the company, and then employees encouraged to bring new ideas and concepts to the fore. And some of them might be innovations around that product or service. Some might be entirely new and going off in a totally different direction. And that panel would act as a sounding board, if you like, to see whether the innovation that's being proposed is suitable for the company, and whether that company wants to get behind it. The thing that we find there is you start to get a lot of cross-fertilization of ideas, purely because people have got different insights and different experience within the company. And John, you might like to speak to that a little bit, because there's underlying data sets out there about products and services that you can pull on to see what a position might look like for a new product or service.
Yes, that's true. I mean, when we go back to about generating ideas, it's really, really important to think about ideas in one perspective, and that perspective is, to quote a Nobel Prize winner, Linus Pauling, the only way to have good ideas is to have lots of ideas and throw away the bad ones. That's so true. So Ian's just talked about having an innovation panel on or inside a company, and one of the big realizations for anyone on that panel or board is that ideas can come from anywhere. They might be internally or they might be external. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with looking at ideas that might come from research centres, or they could come from universities. Alternatively, crowdsourcing platforms, of which there are many around at the moment. The other thing as well is there's absolutely nothing wrong with borrowing ideas from a different market sector. You can purchase them in some respects and secure them. Ian's touched upon technology. It really is an exciting driver, and in relation to data, there are lots of different places where you can pull down data from open sources that perhaps you couldn't going back 5 to 10 years ago, which is interesting because that enables you to get real-time data on products or services or on people's interactions with the digital web, and start to develop applications or start to shape your thinking around real-time lifestyle patterns.
Well, you just talked about co-creation platforms there, just briefly, or crowdsource platforms. And there are some businesses now, typically large businesses, that are using those extremely well. So I say actually large businesses. The ones that are very well known for it tend to be large businesses. People like Lego, Procter & Gamble, routinely using crowdsourced platforms to stimulate ideas, test those ideas and get them to market, and actually prove that it is going to be a positive impact on their business as those products develop. I guess more recently, the younger companies that are much more digitally savvy, i.e. they're online, they're on social media, and they're starting to think about using crowdfunding perhaps to fund their product development. are doing that, are really adopting that lean startup methodology, and testing the market and seeing whether what they've got is a product or a service that someone wants before they spend a lot of money doing that. And actually, that's one of the things that the whole lean startup camp, which is now being applied to traditional business as well, to bring new innovations to market, can be used for, and it typically makes the business a lot more strong as it gets to market. So it's breaking down those barriers. I think probably one of the topics we want to cover off in this subject, John, is about a small group of people working in a business, working very hard to push their business forward, and struggling to see where to go next, where to innovate next. So where do they get that stimulation from? What mechanisms can they use to drag those ideas out of people's heads?
Are we touching upon open innovation and the need to embrace it if you're a company? Right, super. Okay, well, there's been a lot talked about open innovation. And so what the devil is open innovation? Well, it's a process, as Ian hinted on, which is built on collaboration, and that involves working with external partners. Now, that also means sharing the risks and, of course, hopefully the rewards in the process. Why it works? Well, you're not just imprisoned to one sector, you're actually working with other companies. Now, the beauty of open innovation is that you've got a knowledge hub where you can share your skills, and effectively you can work with private, public or third sectors, irrespective of the size of the company that you might be. So you could be a micro, you might be a spin-off from a university, you could be a startup, you might be a not-for-profit, you could be a corporate, or you might be a SME, working together in terms of developing the next product or service or a technology platform that you can use for the benefit of your business. It's not without its challenges, because as everyone knows, when you've worked in teams and you've got people from external companies sat around the table, there's the traditional problems such as process, operations, resources and policies that inevitably come into play when you've got people from different companies and different agendas around the table. But where it's unique and where I do think it's really, really strong is that it's fantastic in terms of search. What do I mean by that? Well, it's damn good in terms of opportunity identification, and it can help you speed up and strive to find a successful idea. Once you've got a successful idea, and going back to Ian's point at the top of the show about a panel, well, it's really important for the panel to then select which ideas and concepts to discuss further. So search, select, and then finally implement. Well, that's what the devil's that. Well, effectively, that's just physical implementation. That could be an internal process. But then is the really hard bit, which is effectively to exploit it. Now, that's always difficult, because that's getting all the bits to pull together in the same direction. So you've got search, select, implement, and finally learn from it, because in theory, the management innovation perspective is about continual development, working together to develop a product or a service, which in itself is a trick. And if you manage it successfully, fantastic, you've got something that's truly innovative and truly different. But I'll go back to the point that we believe at Chemia, it's not really an innovation, so it's actually in the hands of the end user, and there's someone actually using the product or the service
until it's actually making money, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
until it's actually in the market and it's causing your company to make more revenues and better margins.
Yes.
And that's what innovation is all about, really. So the first step really is to identify a problem, and that might be stimulated by discussions with your customers, discussions with your suppliers, or simply discussions with your own team. Innovation is an interesting thing, isn't it? Because it's steeped in that well misunderstood and very difficult to describe area of creativity. Now, lots and lots of academics struggle really to define what creativity is, and there's all sorts of horrible new conglomerated words, ideation being one of them, that we think is just awful. But is actually an attempt to try and describe what that process is of coming up. Now, we're all human, we all like different things, we're all motivated by different things, we have different hobbies, so whether it's you built model planes as a kid, or you played a lot of football, or you were out there playing tennis, or you had a stamp collection, or we've all got different interests and motivations. And if you bring that into a company, or when you bring that into a company, those different interests stay, and they could become valuable, because when you start talking to someone who was I don't know, derive value from their stamp collection, for instance, not a particularly innovative area, I might add, stamp collecting. They may have a really useful piece of information about how stamps are developed in a certain area, or how a specific set of stamps have had a particular value that you can then bring and actually use. Not the actual thing itself, not the idea or the discussion itself, but it sparks other ideas within the team that are being spoken to, and because of their experience, then it starts to stimulate that creativity, and that's really where the spark of innovation comes from, I think, within business. And the more we communicate, the better innovation is. Without communication, innovation is really hard, because you've got to look for external influence and use that creativity then to apply it to other markets.
Yeah, I agree totally. I was just going to mention a little bit about P&G. They're absolutely fantastic at open innovation. Chemia Consulting is based in Yorkshire, and one of our local universities is Leeds University. Last year, P&G signed a deal with Leeds University, which is a strategic partnership to harness two things. The first thing they're looking to harness is the academic research, which Ian's just touched upon, in relation to 20 departments and new high-tech products or services that might come out from the PhD students. What's exciting, I think, about this particular opportunity is that you've got the blend that Ian's just touched upon. You've got the academic research married, importantly, with some business rigor. And you're making the best of education and opportunities internally at the university to act as a springboard to pull everyone in, the expertise of P&G, and then also as well the students and PhD students and lecturers adhering to their skills base in an open forum to develop a product or a service.
Right, and that's quite important. So you're using those different skill sets and those different people with different insights to come together to solve a common problem or develop a new way of doing things. And it's really crucial to say not all innovation is based on advanced scientific research. When you start to dig into it, the majority of businesses, especially small businesses, the majority of their innovation is around business models. So how do they better sell what they have? Is it a license deal? And the car industry is a great example of this. So we know cars are very high cost, very high depreciating assets. They're not an investment unless they're very old, in which case they might go up. But even then, it's a bit of a gamble, and that's really a scarcity value thing more than anything else. But so cars, traditionally, you went to a garage, you found the model you wanted, you ordered the colour you wanted with the mats and the radio and all the other bits of bells and whistles where the car company fleeces you to make extra margin, and you ordered one, and some number of weeks down the line, after you'd parted with your hard-earned cash, a car would arrive. Much like a house, though, because of the cost of the asset, you'd not actually bought it. what you'd probably done is put a deposit down on it, you got a hire purchase agreement, and you were going to pay it off over a number of years. And we've got into that cycle of, right, well, we'll sell the car after 3 years. And then businesses started to buy cars. And I mean, it's always been the case that they've bought things like lorries and vans, and but now cars are very prevalent in some organisations, and in fact, companies buy fleets of cars and manage them. And then the car industry looked at that and said, you know what, there's got to be a better way to do that. Why don't we lease them? So a lot of car pools are now actually leased to companies, and that lease includes a lot of things like ongoing servicing, ongoing maintenance. It might be tied in with, well, if there's an accident, you get the replacement car, or you've got a lot of flexibility. If you want more cars, we can build that in. It might be linked to fuel as well, numbers of miles. So all those things can be put together as a package, and that's actually financial engineering, but it's changed the automotive industry model for fleets, and quite powerfully as well. I mean, now even small companies, so even you and I, John, could actually have a small fleet of cars,
a
fleet of 2 in this case, and we could go and lease hire them, and it'd be, if you look at the depreciation on a purchased asset, on a purchased car, versus the flexibility of the lease hire, then financially the lease hire looks like a better deal, and you know that within a year, 2 years, or 3 years, depending on your deal and the mileage, that you'll be getting another brand new car without having to stump up tens of thousands of pounds to do it.
Yeah, good point.
So business innovation, process innovation are absolutely key. And when you talk to your staff within a business, they probably know where their biggest pain points are. They usually do. They're usually the people with the insight as to what's not working very well or what could work better within a business. And it's crucially important, actually, that you get your staff out there talking to your clients, talking to your supply chain, and if possible, talking to other service providers.
Well, I'll just jump in. Sorry, Ian.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
We're getting a little bit of feedback at this end. I don't know if it's a Klingon to Star Trek at all, but it's cracking a little bit. I was just going to jump in. You talked about talking to external suppliers, and one of the things I was going to talk about, or just touch upon very briefly, was about fast idea generation events, of which there are many up and down the country, and just talk a little bit about the sort of things, what they are and what you can expect from them. Is that okay?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, great.
I was going to say that the benefit of doing that, a bit like open innovation really, it's about collective intelligence, and it's about using different skills and approaches, and the key thing about it is all about speed. So you've got the constraint of the event, and everything happens over a weekend or over 24 hours or over 12 hours even in some instances. I was going to mention the different sorts of types of events there are for people from business to go out and visit and get some ideas by speaking to suppliers or fellow competitors in relation to where they go next and what's possibly the next innovation within their market sector. So there's a couple of different sorts of fast idea generation events that I'm going to touch upon there. The first one is innovation hothouse. What the devil's an innovation hothouse? Well, to give you an example of that, at the start of the year, we went to Venture Fest, and Venture Fest is based in York at the racecourse inn that we attended.
That's right.
And it was all about technology and innovation, and there was a mixture of public, private, and startup companies there. And one of the competitions there, effectively an innovation hothouse, it's a bit like a competitive pitching session. So York City Council were there, and there are a number of small app development startups who were pitching to York Tourism Board on a set budget to develop the next tablet app for the local tourist industry. And that was interesting because that was 5 people pitching over 20 minutes. This is what we're going to do, this is what the app's going to do. and that's an example of innovation hothouse. The second one is something that probably everyone's heard of, which is open space technology, which isn't Star Trek again, or anything to do.
That'll be outer space, right?
Yeah, it would be. That's effectively where you create your own agenda, and that's what Ian was touching upon about getting creative input, which perhaps some of the academic institutions up and down the UK lack a little bit. There's something as well called unconferences. That's more along the lines of high-level expertise and knowledge. So an example to that was Ian chaired an event at the Future City Conference in Bradford earlier this month, and that was all about future cities and technology and the way that technology might go, and getting residents to interact with technology and gaining momentum.
That's right, and actually that's so the Intelligent Cities agenda has been going on for a long time, and there's a lot of innovation around what's going on there. Right now, one of the major things is super connectivity, and so there's lots of broadband vouchers out there in this region, at least, to get companies connected and using the broadband better, because that's known to be an accelerator for many businesses. And that conference was great. There's a good sort of 400 delegates there. Some great speeches from some of the futurists about what could happen, and it aligns very well with sort of Bradford's agenda about being a manufacturing city, which it is already, but actually to promote that and to harness some of the innovations that it's got in the region, which are maybe not as well known about as they ought to be. So so that was a good conference, and it brought together those partners. You touched upon it earlier, John. There's what's called a triple helix, and it's the partners of private sector, public sector, and academia. And actually, if you can get all of those people talking to one another, then good things start to happen generally. So it could be a company's pain point might be they want to develop a new, let's say, a manufacturing environment. They want to develop a new advanced manufacturing facility, but they've got planning issues. But if you get the university together with the private sector and the public sector, those barriers can start to be overcome. And in fact, in the early phases, the universities might even be able to help with some of the small scale stuff, because they've got lots and lots of resources and facilities that if you only know the right academic to talk to, you can go and use quite often. So there's a lot that can be done there. Thinking innovatively itself, I think, is part of the human condition. So people start to think about solving problems naturally, and in fact that's one of the reasons that that we've progressed and evolved, and that we continue to do so. Otherwise, we would, all the inventions would now be made, and we'd just be sat here enjoying the fruits of them. But in fact, that's not the case, and there's new materials being developed and discovered, and applications of those, new ways of doing things, new ways of travelling. We're talking about a spaceport in Scotland.
Absolutely.
Potential. So technology continues to drive things forward. I can only imagine, if there is a spaceport developed somewhere in the UK, that the region around that will be an absolute hotbed of business opportunity, from infrastructure point of view, services point of view, and then actual trade, because it'll be the natural hop-off point. If you can get from America or Australia within a few hours to the UK and into Europe, then what a fantastic opportunity that will be, and that's breaking down a big problem. For anyone who's travelled on business, it's not fun. First and foremost, it sounds really glamorous. It's really dull, and it takes a hell of a long time, which is, it's stressful for the people doing it, but actually for the business, it's a big loss of time, because it could take you, 14, 16 hours to get to where you're going. or more if you're going to Australia. It's 24 hours, and you've lost an entire working day, and the impact of that is felt for weeks. So from a time and resource point of view, very difficult. So major problems around transport. Being innovative, having a spaceport, that's right up there on the agenda. It's got to be, hasn't it? But yet we've got city centre issues as well. So getting people to the country is one thing. How do you distribute them effectively when they get here? That's another. Maybe HS2 will be a part of that solution, perhaps, or HS3, or 4, or 5, or the whole string of HS high-speed rail links around the country. And maybe also, one other thing is perhaps having a spaceport in Scotland would lead to Scotland having a pretty serious airport hub as well. So maybe it would challenge Heathrow for where the international, i.e. European international hub would be.
Yeah. I was going to go back to building on the point that you've just made about the different sorts of places where you can go, and to these hothouse generation ideas. So we've talked about innovation hothouses and venture fest. We've touched upon open space technology and relating to what Ian just talked about, but in a different context. We talked about conferences, and we mentioned there about future cities and the conference that we attended in Bradford. I was going to mention just a quick bit about hackathons and bar camps, but I think people, Ian, really know what they are. What I was going to say, and one of the things that I thought was exciting about the Future Cities Conference was the other sort of fast idea generation event, which is all about social innovation. So we've got a lot of people based in the cities, and a lot of people, more and more people each year get access to the internet, and more people are able to hop on a smartphone, and but there's also a growing number of people who can't afford at the same time to keep up with technology. And how do you get people involved with technology and get them to experience the digital world? And I think that's really important moving forward in terms of momentum. So I was going to mention quickly about social innovation, and locally in Leeds there's a NPO and not-for-profit organisation that's sponsored by Nesta, which is an innovation charity. And Good for Nothing in Leeds effectively is about smart folk collaborating and experimenting for stuff that matters. Well, what does that mean? Well, in the local area and community, they're looking at ways to bring a digital footprint forward and get people using and accessing the internet, and getting them used to accessing, for instance, online billing. It could be for the utilities companies, or alternatively, it could be the first couple of footsteps to help them develop a campaign on a local level for issues that matter in the immediate community.
No, that's very good, John. There is another big conference as well, maybe not about collaborative learning, but certainly about supporting innovation that's going on, and usually technology innovation in the UK, and that's run by the Technology Strategy Board, which is the UK's innovation agency. I think we'll probably put a link to that in the show notes. And they have an innovation showcase event every year, and that's for some of the projects that they funded, but they also run competitions for companies that want to get funded as well. So that's quite a good place to make new contacts and actually find out which companies you might work with in your sector that can help you innovate.
Yeah, I think the key thing there is about high-level expertise and knowledge, isn't it? The sharing of that.
It is. It's that. I think some of it comes back to that perspective thing as well. The fact that we have varying experiences is a valuable thing, and the more conversations you can have with people who've got expertise in bringing things to market, the better and more likely you are of being able to recognise your innovation and make money out of it.
Yeah.
So on that note, John, we've been online quite a long time. I'd like to draw the hangout to a close and thank everybody that's watched it for bearing with us and listening to us waffle on about innovation and how how you might stimulate innovation, how to better think about innovation. And if you've got any questions, please don't fail to get in contact with us. If you see this on YouTube, then follow us through to our website. The link will be in the description of the YouTube video. If it's on our blog, fantastic, you're there already. Please make contact with us. We'd be happy to talk to you. If you've got something you want to bring to market, you want to innovate, you want to improve your innovation within your company, or figure out how to fund your innovation, then Kemir is the place to come to. We are open to conversations and we like to collaborate with people. So we've got a few companies where they've had innovative ideas and we're helping them get to market, but we're actually collaborating on the way as well. You might simply want to just contact us, in which case, again, very happy to talk to you. Feel free to follow the links in the show. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks a lot to John for joining us and giving us insight into open innovation.
Thanks very much for having me in the sharp end.
No, you're very welcome, John, and hopefully you'll be on one of the other shows in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
So that's us. So that's us signing off for today. Thanks a lot for listening.